This is Horse in Motion, a 12-frame black and white grainy motion picture of a galloping horse and its rider on top. While this very short film seems insignificant upon face value, it actually set the very foundation of what we know today as movies. Horse in Motion was the first motion picture ever created. And it was made to prove a guy's point.
No, Greg, you don't get it. They've been lying to you. All four of the horse's hooves leave the ground while galloping. Don't you get... You've been lying.
This is Leland Stanford, California governor, industrialist, creator of a railroad empire, and a corrupt politician. Oh, but he did build a university in honor of his son, Leland Stanford Jr., who died of typhoid fever at just 15 years old, so a caring dad too. But in context of this story, he was also a horse enthusiast, even breeding his own horses.
Leland's passion for horses started when he finished a transcontinental railroad in 1869. The process of making it really put a lot of stress on him. It nearly killed him. His doctor prescribed him with relaxing outdoor activities and slowly steered him towards horses. And I guess he found a real passion for them, considering he would drop any business he had just to yap about them for hours.
So when it came to the argument that horse enthusiasts gave of whether or not there were moments in a horse's gallop where all hooves were off the ground and the horse enjoyed unsupported transit, it's no surprise that Leland was unmoving with his argument that yes, there were moments in a horse's stride where all their hooves were off the ground. At that time, it was commonly believed that horses in mid-stride, called the flying gallop, had all limbs straightened and extended to the end of their reach, like they were posing for an audition of Superman. Admittedly, a horse was able to make its way into the Spider-Verse, so if the whole Clark Kent thing didn't work out, they still had options. But only in the comics. Films still weren't invented yet, dumbass. Back to the point, the reason for this belief was because the speed at which horses galloped were, still are, too fast for the human eye to fully process. Therefore, they just stuck with what was close enough to what they could process. Nevertheless, horse aficionados like Leland were determined to disprove such claims. But of course, they couldn't just see the horse's movements because, again, the horse was too fast to clearly see. Therefore, Leland and other horse enthusiasts couldn't prove jack shit.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
So, in 1872, Leland had an idea involving a photographer he'd already been well acquainted with at the time. That being our protagonist, Edward Muybridge. Yes, his name had the same pronunciation as Edward. He just decided to borrow the odd spelling from a monument to Anglo-Saxon kings in his hometown, which was a river port somewhere in London.
After he immigrated to the US in the 1850s, he spent around the first 10 years or so just selling books, but after a certain period of time, he started to take photos. You know, he started getting into photography, and he mainly focused on Western landscapes, of the U.S., and it quickly caught on, not just in the U.S., but internationally too. He was becoming a household name in the photography community, I suppose, because his photos were regarded, still are, as very beautiful.
However pretty Edward's photos of landscapes in the West were, Leland wasn't looking for a new 4K wallpaper. He was looking to win an argument, so with that goal in mind, he went to Edward himself to discuss it, hoping that this master of photography would be more than willing to aid him in proving to the world his claim.
You want me to fucking what? Make a picture move? The hell? That's literally impossible. Do I look like a fucking wizard to you? Okay, dumb question. Look, it's not that difficult. Yeah, actually, kinda is. Like, okay, I do hold my passion for photography with pride, and I appreciate you for your evidently intense interest in my works, but I have and know my limits. There are some things I just can't do. Like capturing motion of a living subject as it's happening in real life.
At that time, the cameras that photographers used were heavy and bulky. This is why when taking a picture, it had to be held steady to the ground on a tripod, meaning that the camera could not move at all when taking the picture. And on top of that, the exposure of the camera could take 7 minutes to half an hour to attain a clear picture. The reason the exposure is so long is because the camera's shutters, which control how long the sensor is exposed to light to record an image, were really slow back then. It's why you never see anyone smile in old photographs. They had to stay still for the duration of the camera's shutter and exposure time, which back then felt like 2 to 3 fucking business days. It wouldn't be entirely out of the picture if these stoic faces were partially a result of the boredom attained from having to wait so fucking long. As for the film itself, the photographer would essentially have to have a degree in chemistry just to make the film. What that means is that the film was made on the spot using a goopy solution called wet collodion, then pouring the solution onto a glass plate, then preparing said plate into another solution of silver nitrate. And that's just the simple ones that can be understood quickly. The rest of the process is much more complex than just all that. Basically, it was hard to make and prepare the necessary resources for just one photo. Forget multiple photos to capture even just a second of motion. So again, thanks for appreciating me enough to trust me with this impossible mission, but having said that, this mission, impossible. I'll give you 20 bucks to do it. I'll do it. After Edward agreed to Leland's offer, Edward got to work on the project. Despite the process being slow and expensive, Edward would hold his own, maintaining patience to see this project through, testing all sorts of things with the camera and horses, along with other factors. However, one event would delay the project for at least a year, as Edward had to suddenly stop to deal with a personal matter in the autumn of 1874.
When Edward learned that Flora was cheating on him, he was absolutely distraught. I mean, not only did she cheat, but the kid he and her shared, his name was Floredo, and the son's name was Floredo. He originally thought that was their son, but as it turns out, when he was looking through the letters that she and a drama critic named Harry Larkins was sharing, he found a letter that had a photo of his kid in it, and it had the tagline "Little Harry," which is absolutely crazy. And as you can imagine, Edward did not cut any of them slack. He did not take it well at all.
On the night of October 17th, 1874, Edward tracked Harry Larkins to a house near Calistoga, California. There, he shot Larkins through the heart, rendering the man dead. He was arrested and had his murder trial the following year of 1875. Right, I'd like to thank the jury for the deliberations and coming back with a verdict. Okay, Mr. Mybridge, after careful thought, the court has concluded that the charge of manslaughter is outweighed by the violation of Bro Code number 1, bros before hoes, and Bro Code number 14, never hit him below the belt. Therefore, the court finds you not guilty for murder on the grounds of justifiable homicide. Alright, everyone get the fuck out of my courtroom. Post-acquittal, Mybridge sailed for Central America and spent the next year in working exile. Afterwards, when he returned to San Francisco, many of the citizens accepted him, seeing the shooting as frontier justice. In fact, Leland himself reportedly helped to arrange the photographer's defense. After all was settled, Mybridge got back to work on creating the first moving picture, resuming the project in 1877, which took place at Sacramento's Union Park racetrack. This time, Edward was determined to get the sharpest and cleanest photos he could create. Edward had run into a lot of technological problems in his past attempts. In one attempt in 1872, he had tried to expose the film manually by snatching it off the lens cap just as the horse came in frame. When that, to everyone's surprise, failed, Edward had the idea of rigging up a makeshift shutter on the camera made of 2 slats, which would be tripped by a string running across the track. When the horse broke the string in its gallop, the 2 slats slid in opposite directions across the front of the camera, and for a split second, a gap opened that was sufficient to expose the film. Edward made the decision to use this method to capture the running horse, along with utilizing newer, more sensitive solutions to capture an automatic electrophotograph of Stanford's beloved horse named Occident on the run. On July 1st, 1877, Mybridge used this setup to capture Occident galloping. The press went nuts over the result, but doubts among the public lingered, as the published version was not the original, rather a woodcut of a photo of a painting of the original photo.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
This method of improving the image was common at the time. However, some people actually witnessed the photo firsthand.
Me and a few other guys were in Mybridge's studio to see the photo. Our first thought was, I thought the studio would look like a carved out tree with potion racks everywhere, followed by the interest of seeing the picture, of course. We saw this transparent strip, a little bigger than my hand. Over the transparent stuff, we saw the silhouette of the guy on the horse. Turns out, Edward's idea worked pretty damn well.
This success inspired Stanford and Muybridge to expand, using photography to analyze the entirety of the horse's strides. Instead of one camera, Stanford and Muybridge decided to use a dozen, ordering only the best lenses and camera that time period had. The location where the experiment would take place was moved from Sacramento to Stanford's Palo Alto stock farm. The time had finally come. A bright, warm morning set the background over the farm, where the stage had been set. Inside of a wide white shed, 12 state-of-the-art cameras were next to each other in a line, poking out of openings in the shed, facing the path where the horse would race across. The path had 12 wires, each one connected to a camera, waiting to be tripped. On the opposite side of the path was a white backdrop to maximize the contrast for the photo. When the time for the experiment was about to begin, a crowd of horse enthusiasts, journalists, and people who decided to call in sick that day because, hey, at least it's better than another 9 to 5 at the saloon under the intense risk of a shootout, all gathered at the side of the path. It didn't take long for everything to get all set up. The time had come to make history. 20 minutes later, Edward developed the plates and laid them out for the public to see. The audience looked with shock, and it's no surprise why. For the first time in history, photography was able to capture details that no one else was able to see.
I fucking knew it!
Leland got his proof, and the world got the first motion picture. Like many new and intense ideas and innovations, it was met with mixed reactions. Some artists used horse in motion to make their paintings more aligned with reality, while some artists were outraged, with one French sculptor Auguste Rodin saying, "It is the artist who is truthful and it is photography which lies, for in reality time does not stop." Nevertheless, what Edward and Leland achieved would shape a brand new form of media and artistry, forever changing the world. So legendary in fact that they used a similar method for the bullet time sequence in The Matrix.
Yeah, not that high.
Anyways, my broskies, I gotta bounce. Bounce on your boy's dick. Hey, got him.